We're moving into responsible innovation for America's cities, and I'm thrilled that we have David Heller, CEO and co-founder of the NRP Group with us, and Brett Lindsey, President and CEO of Everstream. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you. Glad to be here. Good to see you again.
Good afternoon.
So we're talking about responsible innovation for America's cities, and with the opportunity to disrupt, it's essential for companies in this space to embrace impact and equity and inclusion. So we'll be discussing not only how the urban tech industry is evolving, but why diversity is critical to success as well. Firstly, let's do some intros. David, if you could start just by sharing a brief overview of what you do, but also how are you doing personally after an incredibly challenging year?
Sure. Thank you, Juliet. It's a pleasure to see everyone. My name is David Heller, and I'm the CEO of the NRP Group. The NRP Group is a real estate development company. We started 26 years ago developing primarily affordable housing in Ohio, and Cleveland is where our base is, but we've expanded now to 13 different states throughout the country, and we do both market rate and affordable. So you'll see us with high luxury suburban communities and very nice new construction affordable housing, generally using the low-income housing tax credit as the main vehicle to deliver that. We're building around 5,000 units per year, which makes us about the 7th largest builder in the country, and we're the 6th largest multifamily construction company in the country right now.
Thanks, David. And how are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Thank you. You know, these are unusual times. Our team is doing fantastic. We have 850 employees. We're communicating with them. We're doing a great job of keeping them up to date on how things are going. And it's been a roller coaster. It's been a tenuous time for the past 7 or so months, but we fared very well. We're still constructing in every location that we were. We're still closing on new transactions and starting developments throughout the country, and people are paying their rent because they recognize the fact that it's where they sleep, it's where they need to be, and it's a priority. And we got very lucky. We're not in the urban areas. We're not in the San Franciscos or New Yorks or Washington, D.C.s in the urban cores. We are in suburban locations in some of those markets, but so far so good, and we're doing really well. Thank you.
Thanks, David. And Brett, hi, it's great to see you on here as well. How are you doing? And please share a bit about Everstream.
Sure, thank you. I'm doing great. Frankly, for our sector, COVID has, if there's been a single blessing, it's the fact that people are using more internet than ever. So our business has continued to grow a double-digit percentage throughout this year, and we don't really see any slowdown in how that's going to go. So Everstream is a network service provider headquartered in Cleveland, Ohio. So when you think about us, think of competing against the likes of AT&T or Comcast or Charter. We build, own, and operate fiber optic networks across the Midwest. So we're in Ohio, Michigan, Indiana, Illinois, Wisconsin, Missouri, and come April, the state of Pennsylvania after closing an acquisition. So we're a private business based in Cleveland, owned by AMP Capital out of London. We have invested about $1 billion into the Midwest in constructing these networks. Our largest customers are the wireless providers, so we build fiber to cell towers. We also do that for enterprise customers, businesses, healthcare, et cetera, and have continued to try to grow deeper and deeper into all of the different communities that we serve. So for us, it's about providing internet and connectivity for business customers across their footprint in the Midwest, and feel like the Midwest is an amazing place to own a business and drive growth. We feel like it's an amazing opportunity to also impact the communities that we're in. All of our offices in every city that we occupy are in the downtown area. And as you can imagine, through this year and the challenges that we faced, as a nation, we've seen it firsthand in every single one of the cities that we operate in. And we are trying to do our part to be in the discussion and hopefully push things in the right direction.
And I want to talk about the innovation space for both development, construction, and the infrastructure industries, and what makes right now the right time for innovation to ramp up in these spaces. Brett, I'm interested in, obviously, with all the advances in 5G on wireless networks, even so, we still haven't solved the digital divide, and is now does now feel like a time where we can address that even more than before? Is it worsening? What's your thoughts around innovation in this space?
So I think the good news is that the way that I like to describe our space is that we have a 10-year tailwind. So everything that is growing kind of in double to triple digits a year, the use of cloud, the use of fiber for 5G, increased applications in data centers, organic bandwidth growth, all of that is growing to double to triple digits, which is leading to billions of dollars of money being invested in bringing networks closer and closer to people. The only way that 5G works effectively is literally by having fiber feeding small cell towers ubiquitously across a footprint of a city to work. And the hope would be that that would then get closer and closer to the people that need it. I don't think that it's actually working the way that people had hoped. And so I think you still have a very significant have and have not as it relates to digital connectivity. I've been in the space in Cleveland for 10 years, in telecom for 30, and we have been working towards that digital divide for a long period of time. I think one of the biggest challenges is people don't really understand that if you have folks living in a housing project, the idea of spending $30, $40, $50 on internet service compared to buying food and shoes for your kids and whatever else you need, they're going to pick the latter. They're going to pick what they have to have. And I think there is kind of a fundamental shift in how we think about the internet. It's not a nice to have, it's a required. I mean, if you're a family today, whether you're old or young, have kids or don't have kids, you have to have the internet in your home. It's like water, electricity, gas. I mean, we talk about it being the fourth utility, but we don't actually implement it that way. We don't give it to people in need the way that I believe we need to. And it's something that I think is if there was ever an opportunity for public-private partnership, it's not though just at the city or state level. I think it's also a federal issue. And so I think you've seen a lot of money, and I think you'll see more actually coming with the change in leadership in Washington, where you're going to see a tremendous push to get broadband into every household across the U.S.
And also just even the number of parents homeschooling at the moment, you just think actually surely that exasperates the need for this to be a basic need like access to water, clean water, to be able to educate your children.
If your kids don't have access to it, they can't participate in school. If you don't have access to internet, you can't go find a job if you've been unemployed. 90+% of the jobs are only posted online anymore. And from a healthcare perspective, if you don't have it, how are you participating in your all of the online MyChart, the tools that are out there to try to help you keep up with your healthcare and communicate with your doctor, especially in this day and age we're getting into, and a doctor is especially difficult. Telemedicine has grown exponentially in 2020, which is another positive thing for COVID. People are making legislative changes to make certain that that will help people get access to healthcare, but it all gets back to having bandwidth in their homes.
Right. And David, what innovations are you seeing right now in the development and construction space and the affordable housing space? And how is that innovation ramping up at this point in time?
So one of the innovations, just picking up on what Brett's talking about, is what we're doing with healthcare and housing. It's a huge initiative of ours. Our first development we did 3 years ago with Nationwide Children's Hospital on the south side of Columbus, where we built an additional space within an affordable housing community for career development, because people in that neighborhood needed to advance their careers. They needed to become employable, not just employed, but employable. And so they needed the things that Brett's talking about. They needed those skills in order to be able to use the internet, to be able to feel comfortable in a digital world and get that skills training to get into the workforce. Where Nationwide Children's Hospital sits, it's in an area of Columbus that has been devastated over the years due to just disinvestment and decline and the basic social ills. And so we've looked at that and said, how can we were building affordable housing where we would build a club room, and that club room would be just for the 100 or so residents that would live in our community. We're flipping that on its face now and saying we can build very inexpensively additional space and bring community services into that building and making it available to everybody within the neighborhood, not just the people that live there. It's a whole change. It's a new paradigm shift. It's how we're doing our next development in Cleveland with Metro Health, and then we've got that'll be breaking ground later this month, and then we've got another one on the east side of Cleveland with University Hospitals doing the same thing, where we're looking at social determinants of health and looking at how we can put things in like very large demonstration kitchens to teach people in low-income neighborhoods healthy eating and healthy lifestyles. And so we'll partner with the food bank to make sure that people have the necessary foods because a lot of them live in food deserts. But then once they have that food, they need to know how to cook and how to prepare and how to feed a family and things of that we take for granted, that a lot of people just don't have those skill sets. So that's one of the things that we're looking at now. And then you mentioned telemedicine. Telemedicine is a big initiative of ours where we're working with hospital systems in Texas and putting in actual telehealth rooms so that a resident can walk into that room and have a consultation with the doctor. And it's not just physical ailments, it's also mental health, because what we're going to see on the backside of COVID is a lot of people with mental health challenges, and they need to be addressed, and it's throughout society, but it's going to be even greater in the urban areas, in low income areas where families have been left behind and left out of our economy. And so it's something that we're looking at as a responsible developer on how can we respond to that. You know, you talk about the fact that we need to be looking out 24 to 36 months when we're doing a development, because we're not buying assets, we're building assets ground up. So we need to make those decisions about where's the world going and how can we put things into place to make sure that the building, when it opens 3 years from now, is really responsive to the residents that are going to be living in that community.
And Brett mentioned the importance of public and private partnerships in this innovation, and David, how important is that for you in your industry?
It's really it's a game changer. So because our company was built on public-private partnerships, and because going back to the early days, everything we did was with a nonprofit partner, we view those nonprofit partners and the municipalities as partners in our developments. It gives us a leg up on the market rate developments that we're doing as well. When we're building a market rate development, a lot of times market rate developers don't look at the municipality or even nonprofits within a municipality as a potential partner. And for us, it's ingrained in our DNA. It's critical for that public-private partnership. There's going to need to be a delivery system of the dollars to make these developments work as it gets tougher and tougher, and the economy is stressed in different ways. And so having those partnerships with nonprofits, Juliet, I was telling you the other day, we just closed on a transaction in New Rochelle, New York. We're partnering with Boys and Girls Club of America on an affordable development, and we're rebuilding the Boys and Girls Club that was already established and doing so well in that area, but now they're going to have a brand new facility incorporated into affordable housing. It's a game changer for a market like that, and it only comes about when you view a public-private partnership as an asset and not a challenge. And so that's the way that we've embraced it.
Right, and we're talking about responsible innovation. So I want to talk about diversity and inclusion and racial equity, and following the events of this year, I'm keen to hear your experiences as leaders in this space and leading your teams and companies through this. First off, Brett, why do you think diversity is critical to successful and responsible innovation in American cities, and what has been your experience this year?
So I think diversity is of the utmost importance in our business. I think you have to have a representation of the customers that you serve within your own business so that you can appreciate the differences between all of us. And so for us, we have made diversity one of our key values for our entire business, and it's something that we view as a responsibility. It's not something that's just a nice to have thing to placate people up on the wall when they walk through our office. It's really something that we try to bring into every hire, every addition that we're making in our business, and thinking about how are we making certain that we're including people. This year's been tough, let's be clear. And frankly, as a 50-year-old white guy, I'm not the one that is best prepared to be able to understand what people are going through. And so this year, I've spent a lot of time listening and asking questions and trying to figure out the best way to share, from what I can with people. And so I sought some advice of other people, and I talked to a number of African-American men that I know, asking for some guidance and some thoughts. And one of the most interesting things that was encouraged to me was to read what are called the letters from Birmingham Jail that were written by Martin Luther King in 1963. And as you read those letters, you could have replaced Birmingham with any city in the Midwest, make it Detroit, Cleveland, Milwaukee, Indianapolis. And in every instance, I was reading these letters and they felt like they could have been written today. And so what I did with that is so in our population, I've got 30 African American, or those that feel represented as Black from different countries across the world, that are in our organization. And we had a conversation about these letters. And the thing that really resonated to me when I read them and what I shared with our team was, in the letters, Martin Luther King basically says, look, I'm not afraid of the KKK or the raging racist. The person that I'm actually the most scared of is the moderate white male. The group that basically is just sitting there listening, hoping that you will stop talking so that the issue will go away and they can stop worrying about it going forward. And so my challenge to my team, and my challenge, frankly, to other tech leaders has been, let's not be the moderate white male. This is our issue to resolve. It is not an issue for African-American people to own on their own. It's just not. I mean, if we're not collectively working on a solution to try to be inclusive to all races in every facet of our business, that's on us. And frankly, the idea that somehow it's going to get fixed by the government, to me, just is not realistic. I think that business leaders and community leaders are the ones that have always pushed these things forward in your own community. And so if you're not getting involved and talking about it and having an actual opinion about it, then I think you are a bigger part of the problem than you know, and you're effectively becoming that moderate white male that people fear.
And it's interesting because I do think it's the cities and the corporations and the companies that are going to be the catalyst for change and reform, and will be critical to driving equity and the diversity and inclusion agenda. David, I know you've had some other interesting experiences, and you describe it as a journey. What have you done as a company, and how have you approached it?
So I agree with Brett. You know, it's really incumbent upon, and with you, it's incumbent upon the business owners and the people in cities to keep this flame alive and to keep it moving and to keep talking about it. And that's what we've done at NRP. I started on my REI journey about 3 years ago, and it was through the help of some very, very gracious friends that led me on that journey. It's reading, it's learning, it's being part of discussion groups. So when the tragic incidents of this year occurred with George Floyd and others, it was just really picking up from there and leading our company through that. And so one of the things that we did was we created something called the Nrp Minute. And what the Nrp Minute is with our 850 employees, it's an opportunity for people to share their personal stories. They write their story into our diversity and equity and inclusion committee. Then it comes to me with no name on it. And so then I share it in my weekly update call, and I share it as an anonymous story from a fellow person at NRP. The idea and the concept behind this is that these stories are from people that they come to work with every day. These are the hardships, sharing these stories. And it's really stories on both sides. It's the victims of racism, and it's also the perpetrators of racism. And I think that that's an important thing for people to come to their own soul searching on where they are, and understanding that people did grow up in families where there were racist acts, or listening to an aunt and uncle or a mother or father around the dining room table perpetrating racial jokes and just all sorts of horrible things, and people coming to terms on how wrong that is and how we need to stop that. And so what we wanted to do is we wanted to create this forum where the discussion and dialogue around race continues. And that was really important. And it's not something that you're seeing on TV. These are people that you work with on a day in and day out basis. And then it just permeates from there. Then we've taken that and started making changes within our company that have been incredibly healthy changes, not just from a hiring standpoint, which is critically important, but also promotions, and the way that we look at everything within the company has been through a new lens, and it's really been a healthy process for us. And trust is also something that has been incredible. And the way that our leadership has come to me and at all different levels and said, thank you for making this an open forum. Thank you for making this a safe place for us to be a part of. It has been really heartwarming for me.
And as you both look towards next year, and the role that cities play and the role that your industries play, what are some of the, I guess, what are some of the key challenges you see, and also what will give you hope, Brett?
Well, I think the challenges, are the fact that people are frankly still scared I think as they think about COVID and the impact on their family, and we watch the number of cases that are cropping up, and you watch it on CNBC, and that's one thing. When it's happening in your business and you're seeing the person that's sitting next to you and their workstation is now sick, or someone in their family sick, and it becomes even more real. I think there was a bit of optimism when people started talking about the vaccine. But let's be clear. I mean, it's going to be well into next year before a significant amount of people have had vaccination. And so I think trying to get people mentally prepared that we're going to be dealing with this for the bulk of 2021. And while I want to say it as a realist, I almost don't want to say it to people because I don't want to bum them out anymore about what they're really going to be facing next year. But I think that's just the reality of where we are. And so for us, it's really looking at, okay, continue to be focused on the positives of our business. We have not laid a single person off. In fact, we've continued to grow and hire people through this. Our plans next year are to hire almost another 100 people into our business. And so for us, it's trying to keep our people as positive as possible, knowing that, we're serving customers and we're providing for people's families and we're doing everything that we can. To follow on what you were saying, as far as what needs to happen in the communities, I think nothing has gotten better, frankly, for a lot of these people. I mean, we need more help, more energy, more enthusiasm around trying to make these changes happen in 2021. My biggest fear is that the election happened and everybody's going to be like, okay, that racist problem that we were having about Trump's gone, we're all good now. And that's not the case. I mean, there is a tremendous amount of work that has to be done to make this better. And I feel like if we kind of step off the gas on trying to, keep the energy behind making this better, we will very quickly have people revert back to the moderate white male, quiet, make it go away. I don't want to talk about it anymore. And I really hope that doesn't happen.
Me too.
So briefly did you want me to answer? Or did you have a?
No, go on, you go.
Sure. I mean, briefly, what I really look at as a challenge that we're looking at coming up is the stress on state and local governments. And so the ability of the state and local governments to have the dollars from a taxing standpoint to be able to deliver high quality services is going to separate winners and losers going forward. And it gives me a lot of pause and a lot of concern. And I'm hopeful that in a new administration and in a new Congress that they're able to give some relief to state and local governments because they're going to need it. And it affects what we do in the ability to deliver affordable housing and to be able to have gap financing to be able to make that happen. But just all of this, the services that are required for a well-functioning city is critically important. And we're going to see an incredible stress on that as tax dollars become less and less available. And then just on the positive side, from a hope standpoint, I just believe in the resilience of the American people. I'm impressed by it, incredibly impressed through all of COVID. I know that there have been incredible losers in this, but there have been some incredible winners. And there have been companies that have pivoted, and you talk to them in March and April and they didn't know how they were going to get out of bed, and you talk to them now and they talk about how they pivoted their company. And sure, it wasn't what they planned for 2020, but they're making the best of it and coming out of it in a great way. I've had so many of those conversations with CEOs. It's heartwarming. It's invigorating to me as a business owner. And that's where I believe we'll be in 2021. We're going to have an incredible upshot from all of this just because of the resiliency of the American businessman.
Thank you, David. I've got two quick questions from the audience. One I think is referring to the digital divide, and from Jack Loop, in terms of how can we set annual goals and number of families that have internet access and in whichever city and state last year. Who should be measuring these results, and where do you think that responsibility lies, Brett?
Well, I think the challenge, in Cleveland, for example, I think there are as many nonprofits anywhere in the country other than New York City. There are more there. So you have lots of people with lots of ideas on trying to do it. I think one of the challenge is that if you're going to actually fix the problem, I really think you're going to have federal leadership to get that going, because the amount of money that's going to have to go in to making it work is so significant that I don't think that the cities and states can afford it. And I'll follow on what David said. The cities and states, frankly, got their ass kicked in 2020, and that's not going to stop in 2021. So if you think that somehow they're going to be the one coughing up billions of dollars to go build broadband into inner city projects, that's not going to happen. They don't have the resources to be able to do that. They're going to be trying to just stay afloat in 2021. So I think that there has to be a federal process. There's lots of folks that know where the needy people are. We do it today in lots of other ways. So why it is that we can't get behind it at a federal level to fix that digital divide is beyond me. And I think that that's something that's going to have to happen. That's not going to be easy and it's not going to be fast, but I think leadership at the state level pushing towards the federal government is good. Look, we're doing everything we can on a regular basis to try to build into areas, partner with people. There's a number of people that are doing it, but we're fixing little tiny pieces of the problem. And it really is a much larger problem that we're going to have, some significant leadership to resolve.
And final question from Joan Gumbel, for all the people that have lost their jobs and been unfortunate and impacted through job loss, what's the opportunity in your industries? David, I'll come to you to help people obtain new skills for your companies.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it's really more meant for Brett, but I'll start with it and just say that, there are tremendous opportunities at all levels in construction. It's a great transferable business because whether it's a trade or a highly technical skill, the barrier to entry is very, very light. But I think that the question is really more for Brett on with the massive growth that's going on in technology, how can people transfer that? The only thing I'll say is, being a member of a community college board here in Cleveland, that we are set up, and community colleges around the country are really set up as great transitional points for people for second careers to really check into the programs that they have, to take the skills that they're coming in with, transfer them to the new economy. All the community colleges around the country are set up that way. Cuyahoga Community College happens to be one of the best in the country at doing that Tri-C, but Brett, I'll turn it to you to give your answer.
David's right on. What we need are people that are going through and getting just a single certification, some way that they're learning a specific skill that we can then put into play, whether that's in customer service, whether that's in our network operations center, but there's some amount of skill that you need to be able to do that. And there are a ton of facilities that are out there, whether it's going through community college. Google actually has free platforms that allow for people to do that. There's a number of ways. And so we've been trying, and for us, we hire folks in every market that we operate in. So we're bringing people on in every single city that we're a part of, and want to continue to do that. I think the challenge that I've seen is that a number of the folks that have been the most impacted aren't the folks that are working in our business, and probably not even working in David's, because our businesses are doing really well. I feel really bad this year, and I think it's going to continue into 2021 for the folks that are in the service industry. And I think those are the people that are going to have the largest challenge in just kind of mentally making that shift of, I'm going to have to leave what I've been doing for a long time, go learn another new skill as quickly as possible, and try to get employed, in another profession. It's going to be tough for people.
David and Brett, thanks so much. There was a great conversation and a great insight into your industries and responsible innovation in cities as well. I commend you both for your leadership and really kind of showing and leading the way in terms of as white males, how you can shift the culture of your respective businesses. So thanks so much. That was David Heller, CEO at the NRP Group, and Brett Lindsey, President and CEO of Everstream. Thank you both.